Okay, this is starting on my part 5 video. This middle electrolytic can is getting warm. I have it up to 100 volts and I've been cycling it up and down, and this thing heats up every time. Chances are it's never going to reform, so what I should do is replace these electrolytics right off the bat. I'm not going to be able to power it up with these existing ones and hope that they don't explode on me. Here's the other thing. This 10 ohm resistor here. I checked it right away when I saw it and it seemed good. The 10 ohm resistor is supposed to be 8,500 ohms, and it does measure that, but the resistor is going. I have a probe on it, and if I push it just right, there we go. Well, 88.75. But if I relax, so you see it's intermittent. And that's what happens to those 10 ohm resistors. They're wire wound, and that wire breaks and probably broke right at the tab here. These really are junk. Lowry organs used them years ago in their early instruments, and I replaced many of those 10 ohm resistors. But this one, push, there we go. Yeah, see, it's junk. The radio is dead. I had it up to 100 volts, but got no action out of the radio, so I'm assuming that replacing this this resistor here will bring the radio somewhat back to life. But before I could do that, I'm going to have to replace all those electrolytics there, because I just can't get those reformed. This thing has been really wild to troubleshoot, to figure out why the radio doesn't work. Now, I tacked these two. I never have the right parts in my shelf, so I made this resistance with these two resistors to bypass this failing 10 ohm resistor up there. Now this resistor and this one that's cooking so nice is actually replacement for this 10 ohm, which had failed. Somebody else had worked on this. So what they did was they put this 100 ohm to ground, which is correct, 650 ohms, and this 650 ohm resistor feeds the B plus into the radio. Problem is it's cooking. Number one, why? Well, because it only was 57 ohms to ground. So where was that 57 ohms to ground? Now it goes to 2 IF cans. I pulled a wire off of here to try to isolate it. This dog bone capacitor goes here, and of course the problem wasn't here, and I finally narrowed it down to this IF. It goes into the IF down here, goes through the IF coils, and then this capacitor went up here to ground. This is ground, and the capacitor is 1 ohms. So there is the problem. And I wonder what other technician might have worked on that and couldn't find that shorted capacitor. And that's why we actually ultimately will replace all these paper wax capacitors, because those suckers they'll leak, they'll open, or they'll short. They're just, because they're old and they don't last. So I'm going to replace this capacitor, try to get this thing all back together, get this all soldered back up right, see if I can't get this radio playing. So I'm getting close to testing the radio on the Magnavox Embassy again. To recap, this is what I've done so far. I clipped out this line capacitor. It should be a type Y safety cap, but it'll work just fine without that capacitor. I clipped that out. The two 5Y3s were totally dead. They had blown filaments, both of them. I have my solid state rectifier in there for bringing it up slowly to try to keep the electrolytics from blowing up. I replaced one very weak 6V6 amplifier tube with one a used one I had in my kit that tests strong. I took this 1 ohm capacitor out, which was burning up this resistor. By the way, this resistor will be replaced obviously, but it still checks out at the resistance it's supposed to be. It's amazing how a ceramic resistor could melt like that. That's really hot. So anyways, I think this will work for at least a few tests. I jumpered out this can ohm resistor with these two. I'll get the right resistors for this at a later time. And here is the replacement for the shorted capacitor. Now, with all this, I should be able to get the radio to work. We'll see what happens, but this is what I've done so far. Okay, I'm going to bring the power up. We're at full power.
They have to stay in their rooms. Yes.
Radio's not picking up very much. Well, at least it worked a little bit.
And get this, and this is where it gets a little wacky on the rules and people might, whoa, what's going on here? So, on an incomplete pass,
So at least I have it working.
run out of bounds outside.
This capacitor is still getting warm.
Spot the ball and go. Like, you know, it's not the normal.
This capacitor is still warming up. So I think the next video will be after I rebuild this whole amplifier and power supply.
We could see 2.5-hour games. That's your own base. No salespeople breathing down your neck.
That's my favorite.
Nick scared the living crap out of everybody because we... From the top-ranked WP Carey School of Business at Arizona State University, offered